Hey y'all, happy Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. Yeah, it is Wednesday. So I just wanted to share a little bit of what God showed me this morning and how I have found myself connecting to a baby dinosaur from the land before time. I actually put connections together this morning with the help of, some prayer and some dream dissecting and everything, just trying to understand why I react to things that don't necessarily deserve a reaction. And God showed me that, now that I've been off of my heart meds for almost 6 months, I'm starting to feel things that I have never felt before. And I'm in this crazy space right now of being the most heartbroken I've ever been in my life, but also being the happiest I've ever been in my life. And I know that none of that makes sense unless, it's just God like doing something in my life and showing me. And so I realized that my heart medication, because I asked God to reveal to me like why am I like this, God? Like, why do I feel like I have to react in such a aggressive way sometimes, and yell and lose my temper when I'm in fear, when there's fearful moments that come up. And he showed me that he told me, he said, that's not who you are. That is what that medication did to you, but that's not who you are. And so I started really like researching more about my heart medication and like what it does. And it really, it suppresses your emotions, and it doesn't allow you to feel very many emotions, because it's supposed to, it blocks the epinephrine of, fight or flight. And so you don't live in like a normal mindset when you're on it, because things can happen to you and it pretty much numbs you. So like it's numbing the things that you should feel in order to, make human rational decisions. And that was not how my body was working. And it almost, God gave me like a vision of almost like my like a garbage disposal, and how, when a garbage disposal is broken, like the garbage gets backed up in there, and eventually it's going to overflow. And what's going to come out of it? Nothing good. Like nothing, you're not going to get like fresh water out of it. You're going to get like garbage and like gross stuff. And so basically my garbage disposal has been broken because my heart medication has blocked my ability to process information properly in a way that I can dispose of it and get rid of it for good. And so I harbor these things and I hold on to these emotions not knowing that they're still inside of me. And then when, crap hits the fan and puts me in fear, that's when all of the garbage comes out. And so last week I had a dream about I was walking up to my house, and along my walkway there was it was like dirt, but a bunch of birds. There was a bunch of like alive birds buried in the ground, and it was, their heads were just sticking out, and they were chirping, and they were like chirp 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 chirp, and they were sticking out, and they were all different sizes. They all had like similar features, but they all were different sizes. Like there were big birds, there were little birds, but the thing that they had all in common was that their whole bodies were buried underground, just their heads were sticking out. And after waking up and praying about that, I realized how much I suppress a lot of things, how I bury my feelings quite often, because I don't know how to deal with them, because my body, my garbage disposal is broken, or I just, I didn't want to deal with them in the moment, because there's always something going on in my life that I'm distracted by. And so as I woke up this morning and just decided that I was going to do a little bit more research about the beta blocker and like what other things it can cause. And I came across that fight or flight thing, that it suppresses your fight or flight mode. It made a lot of sense that, you know, I've been constantly trying to fly and get out of situations, but you know, I've been numbed by the beta blocker. And so now for the first time I can actually feel a range of, sorry, I got a phone call. But for the first time in my life, I can now feel a range of emotions that are unfamiliar to me. And so, but I'm also able to process them in that time and dispose of them appropriately, which is bringing more happiness and joy in my life because I don't hold on to things anymore. And so as I was talking about all of this with my sister-in-law this morning, and I told her about my dream about the birds, she asked me what kind of birds they were. And I was like, well, they kind of looked, they were like kind of cartoonish, but they reminded me of The Land Before Time, the character Petrie. And I said, but he's not a bird, he's a dinosaur. And I was like, I don't know, like, why I would have, you know, this vision of dinosaurs. But Petrie, for those of you who are not familiar with Land Before Time, is a male pteranodon. I think that's how I say it, pteranodon. And his character is basically an anxious character who is struggling to learn to fly. He eventually overcomes his fear to help save his friends from the sharp tooth. And I just found it funny that that they all looked like Petrie. Their characteristics and the way that their features look like Petrie. But then I even thought back to my childhood and how my whole family loved The Land Before Time. We even had like animals that we named after them, and Petrie was one of them that we named this little dwarf rabbit that we had. He was a little black dwarf rabbit that we named Petrie. And we would always joke, like, you know, my dad would just like be like, I flied? And be like, no, you falled. And I went back and watched that clip just earlier today. And it's funny how, you know, when Petrie is meeting Littlefoot and Ducky, he falls out of a tree and he lands in the ground, and then Ducky comes over and, you know, is talking to him, and then Petrie asks, you know, did I flied? And they all say, no, you falled. And he gets discouraged, and then Littlefoot says to him, well, if you can't fly, you're a flyer, but you can't fly, how'd you get all the way up in that tree? And he said, I climbed. And that made me resonate so much more with him, because I realized how, like, because I've only felt happy or sad, when I'm sad, I feel like I have to do stuff to get out of my sadness. And so I fight even harder. I don't necessarily fly, but I do get out of situations and I do overcome battles, but I climb my way out of it. I do all this hard work of climbing when I really need to let go and let God teach me how to fly the way that He designed me to. And I need to stop suppressing my emotions and stop burying my feelings in order to actually have a clear mind and not have it cluttered with all the garbage, you know? And so I find it also funny that my YouTube channel that I created is called The Fall with Danielle. And so, you know, here I have been trying to find my way to fly all these years, and, you know, God's, you know, given me direction, but I just keep thinking that I have to climb my way out of situations, and by climbing, you're not learning how to really fly. And so, I'm just, you know, at age 40, reconnecting with my inner child and finding that I have a lot in common with Petrie, and I have a lot to work on still, and just overcoming my ability to process things and get my garbage disposal back running properly, so that I can, you know, dispose of the things that need to be disposed of in that moment and not hold on to it, because it's not doing anything but weigh me down. And you know, there's nothing heavier than carrying a heart full of crap. And that's the truth.